Anyone at any point, you could put yourself in this scenario because you relate whether you like it or not. Every single one of us has a secret to hide. Every single one. It's a fact. I have issues in my life that I do not want you to know about. Here's the thing. God knows. And so Jesus stops, takes a moment. Here's the big question. Here's a big question for tonight. And this is kind of where we'll take our thought from. Where do you take your issues? We've all got them, so where do you take your issues? Verse 26, and let me talk to the ladies first for just a second, and then we'll get to the fellas. Ladies, the Bible tells us that this woman with her issues, verse 26 says she took it to men. It says she went to many physicians, and instead of getting better, she only grew worse. She spent everything she had, so she lost everything and got worse. And there's a reason to that, because man can't fix you. Can't do it. Even a good man does not have the capacity or the ability to fix what's broken in you. It's impossible. And if you're asking a man or hoping that a man, I'm talking to ladies for just a second, if you're hoping that a man could fix you, you are just setting yourself up to get hurt. The best any good man could ever do is just point you to the one who could fix you, because there's only one. That's the best any good man could ever do. So this woman goes to man, the Bible says over the span of 12 years, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. I'm wondering sometimes, like in our society, why is it that sometimes, not everyone, but sometimes women are just, they're obsessed with this thought of just getting a man to fall for them. Just if I could get him to recognize me, fall for me. It's like the criteria for Mr. Right shouldn't be if he falls for you, because every man falls. The criteria for Mr. Right should be, will he fight for you? Is he willing to fight for you? And now I'm not talking throw punches out in the parking lot. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, like, will he fight for your honor? Will he fight for your reputation? Will he fight for your protection? Will he fight for your purity? That's the criteria for a good man. A lot of times we're looking for men. I just put myself in that category. I've heard we're looking for men to fill a void that they just can't fill. It's not within them. And I think about the men, and fellas, if I could just take a moment for you, if you're looking for a woman to make you a man or to somehow qualify you as a man, you would also fall short, because she doesn't have it within her to make a man out of you. It's crazy to me sometimes when we don't take our issues to God, we're taking them somewhere. So I don't know, you take yours to a bottle of whiskey, you take it to some pills, you take it to a relationship. Have you taken it to success? Is that what you're doing? Like, I'm just gonna ball out. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna climb that ladder. I'm gonna make something. Are you taking it to fame? Something? I'm not upset with any of that. The pills, maybe, but but wherever you're taking it, if you're not taking your issue to God, your issue will never get better. It'll only get worse. And you're like, oh, that's church talk. That's life talk. That's just life talk. So it is what it is. There's only one being on the planet that can fix what's broke inside of me. Now, that just doesn't become like a really cool phrase. Let's break it down let's look at it for a second, so it doesn't become cliche. Faith in what? He said your faith has made you whole. Faith in what? Faith that Jesus could heal her, or faith that Jesus would heal her? Because we know he can. In fact, everyone in the area would know that he can, because he's been raising people from the dead. He's been touching blind eyes and people are seeing. He's been touching the lame and they've been dancing. So we know Jesus can. I think the faith that this woman needed and Jesus was referencing is the faith that why would he heal her? And I think that's what most people deal with in life. I know I've dealt with it. Why would God even waste his breath? Why would he? This woman has been shunned by society, probably by her own family. I don't know what her view of herself is. But she's been going to the wrong place for 12 years, so she must not think too highly of herself. She's allowed men to take advantage of her time after time after time. And he says, your faith that Jesus would heal her. You know why most people don't walk into church? They don't feel welcome. Most people are like, I can't go to church. I don't belong there. Jesus stopped everything for this woman. He stopped everything. And he says this phrase to her. He says, daughter, your faith has made you whole. Now, to you and I, the word daughter means daughter. It's used twice in this passage. It's used to describe the synagogue ruler. His name's Jairus, his little girl. The Bible says his daughter was dying. And then it's used when Jesus addresses this woman and calls her daughter. Now, in the English language, it's just daughter. But in the Greek language, which is the language the New Testament was written in, and what they would be speaking, it's two completely different words. They sound different, spelled different, I'm assuming, but they're two completely different words. So the word daughter that is used for the little girl that's dying, it's just the general feminine form of little girl, daughter. It's just the general form. The word that Jesus used, this is a fact now, the word that Jesus used was the word that would mean family. It was intimate. It literally would, when Jesus used this word, people in the area would have literally been like, wait a second, is he married? Did he have a girl? Is that his child? Not only would everyone in the area know that Jesus just called her his, but she would know. She would. And so it's essentially like what Jesus was saying is, Jairus, I understand that your baby girl is sick, but my daughter needs me right now. And so he says, daughter. And I'm telling you, I guarantee you a hush hit the place. That's his daughter. And she would have known. And that's where we understand where Jesus says, daughter, your faith has made you whole. Jesus didn't just heal her. She was healed instantly. I believe she was made whole the moment Jesus gave her identity that was his. That's when she was made whole. He healed her instantly. The moment she touched him, she's healed.
Let's begin with the shadow of judgment. We all make judgments all the time. It's something that comes through our mind. Our mind picks up on our emotional responses, on our physical feelings. And then they create detailed judgments out of that. Anything out of your comfort zone leads to a judgment of one sort or another. That's the dilemma here. Judgment is based on the perceived notion of flaws, mistakes, errors. So all we see here is the flaws in life. The shadow likes to find flaws. It has a knack of finding flaws. You know, the flaws that our parents make every day, the flaws of our teachers, the flaws of our friends, the flaws of our enemies at school. We fix ourselves into a fixed thought realm. And thus, it stops your mind from expanding naturally and freely. You're forever seeing what's missing, and you're therefore driven by this misery. And you spend a lifetime chasing the flaws and trying to perfect them, eternally dissatisfied. And of course, you're going to judge yourself internally all the time for not being good enough. The Chinese name for this hexagram is work on what has been spoiled. Work on what has been spoiled. That means that you can find the flaws and you can use them as inspiration to serve the whole in some way. That's the gift. But the shadow is just what has been spoiled. There's no work. It's just a curse you carry everywhere you go. So look deeply into the mirror of your judgments. Consider what happened to your mind through your teenage years. What mental compromises did you make that led to this acute habit of judging the world around you as flawed? And more importantly, what can you do about it now to open up that wonderful mind of yours again to the incredible possibilities that are latent in this gene? So our inner journey through the gift begins. When we learn to use the flaws to inspire us. You see, it's not so much that you as an individual have integrity. It's built into life. Look at the animal kingdom. You see no judgment. Every creature has its own integrity in the great web of life. Everything has its purpose, its role. Nature as a whole has a certain perfection to it. But humans don't yet see it that way. We're still evolving. The problem with the shadow, the dilemma, is that unless you can train the lens of this gene key on your own behavior in a compassionate way, you're caught in the inevitable hypocrisy of the judging game. But as we evolve and as we begin to awaken, we begin to learn how to take responsibility for our own flaws. We may see the flaws of others, but instead of making them the focus, we train our laser sight on ourselves. Because without an inner view, we're lost in the shadows. And then your inherent knack of finding flaws turns itself upon your own thinking. It's we who cause the problems. It's our very thinking. And then you begin to clean out your thinking. And this is an amazing process. We only really enter into the field of integrity when we're no longer in reaction. Because our service can't come from anger. It must come from love, from wisdom, and from realization. You see, integrity has great calm inside it. It isn't showy or provocative. Integrity leads by example. That's its primary method. The being of integrity is relaxed deep inside. And that's where their power comes from. It comes because they're both in the game, but a part of their awareness is also resting outside the game. And it's a mind like water. It flows in harmony with the universe. It sees the perfection and the flaws, and it knows its role in bringing those flaws back into alignment with the greater perfection. Integrity is about embodiment. It's also about having grit. That's hidden in the word. Integrity. It's gritty. Because you're going to have to go against the grain. You're going to have to go against the shadow, against the naysayers, against the pessimists and the hypocrites, against the mass consciousness and the shadow. Which is the role of integrity, to be a model of harmony and beauty and inner strength, even when everything seems set against you. It's a mind like water. It flows in harmony with the universe. Perfection, perfection. the world as it is right now in this very moment is utterly perfect. And this is not just an intellectual understanding. It's pervasive across the whole great span of your inner being. It's the culmination of the process of meditation or contemplation. The utter acceptance of what is in each and every moment. So you become a witness to your mind. And then your mind lets go and sinks back into the primordial source of being. And then you experience perfection. And every thought arises spontaneously out of that perfection. So eventually all emotional patterns rooted in the past, or in the mind, or in desire, also fall back into the root of the emotion, the still lake of being. And then the perfection of love is experienced continuously, and this love is unconditional. So it includes what we once considered as ugly or flawed, but what now is perceived as perfect. The perfection of physicality is experienced as stillness and as boundless. One form flows into the next.
I have learned from Perry's discussion of the schizophrenic problem that there are a number of types of experience that can disassociate the individual from his environment, and we're going to find all of them in a portrait of a young man. First, there is an experience of being an outsider for one reason or another. In the portrait, the little boy goes to a school where athletics play a big role, and he is no good at them. He falls down, he is chilly, he is anxious. To compensate for this experience of being outside, Perry says, inner fantasies arise that put the individual at the heart of belongingness. One of the principal images or tendencies towards imaging in the schizoid situation is that of seeking to find a center. There's a psychic shift to an unknown place which will be the center. And the imagery associated with that centering is very important in the person's thinking. You have the cross and the center. A second situation Perry identifies as a damaged self-image. This can happen when parents continually scold a child or tell him he is doing things the wrong way, rather than thanking him and complimenting him for his little positive achievements. Or if a person comes into an environment where his character is not appreciated, when his cultural heritage or the social milieu from which he comes is not respected, where, for example, his race is not respected, then his self-image can be damaged. Perry says that to compensate for a damaged self-image, there comes this urge for power, this quest for the feeling that one has the power to bring one's own psychological field into order. And again, we are going to get in Stephen very strongly. There are a number of reasons for his damaged self-image, and we see in him the notion of his power to bring order into his life. That is what lies behind his strong aestheticism, an aesthetic urge to organize a field first of the work of art, but then the field also of his whole life. Work of art, writing and fiction, writing in the I, also of his whole life. So this is you, journaling in a you. This is the second act. It's on in real time, right? Aesthetic urge to organize a field, the field first of the work of art. Yes, that's catharsis in the playbook, catharsis. And then next act, his whole life. Thank you, Lord, for your affirmations of me. Thank you. Zeus is lightning. It represents not partaking, so you can be spared from the death. Spiritual intelligence is the way, the truth, and the life. Thank you, Zeus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you so much